I'll never regret it.
All right, good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Military in me says that 6 o'clock meetings start at 6 o'clock. Thank you all for being here. I want to, before we even start the meeting, I want to introduce one of our board members who wants to address the group, Mrs. Stanford.
So I'm Laura Stanford, and I'm the District 6 trustee. I represent all of you. I also have a nephew in the district, but I realize that when I walk in here, I can't be just an aunt. I have a board hat on and I can't take it off. And so I want you to understand I'm only here to observe. Last meeting, there were people that complained about board members being in these meetings. I want you to know that that's heard, and that if that is something that bothers you, please email the board. And if you do, I will put it on an agenda to discuss, because we are not here to interfere with the report, the very important report you're putting together for us. We cannot put our thumb on the scale or poison the well in any way. And I want you to know that I heard the feedback, and then I'm inviting you to write the board. The district can't really do much about it. The board is the one that needs to take action. So I am so grateful that you're taking the time to be here tonight. This is such important work that you're doing, and I thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stanford. All right, once again, thank you all for being here. My name is Jan Brooks. I'm one of the assistant superintendents over operations, and I kind of oversee the road planning committee. Want to first of all, once again, say thank you guys for being here. I know it's evening. Most of us, a lot of us, are probably at work today, so we're adding some time to what we've already done today. And even, those who may not necessarily go punch in at a job, I know you got stuff that you do, whatever it is that you do that makes you tired too. So we get that. And so what I want to do is make sure that we are as efficient as possible with this meeting, with your time. And so with that, I want to go ahead and get started. I do want to introduce our superintendent, Dr. Fields. He is here. And there is a couple other one other board member, Ms. Kenoyer, who is here as well. Oh, that's right. We'll see it over here. Thank you all for being here. So I want to start out with a kind of a catch up, a recap of last meeting that we had in November, right before we went on the Thanksgiving break. I want to cover a few things that we talked about. So last meeting, we did go through the demographer's report, and the demographer's report revealed that we are anticipating a decline in enrollment for next year, and some years to come. We're going to see kind of a steady decline anticipated for enrollment, and so with that, that means reduction in revenue, which then will cause an effect that we would have to look at the possibility of consolidating some campuses. And so based on the meeting last month, it was determined that based on that, we're going to be looking to make a recommendation out of this committee to the board to consolidate one middle school and 2 elementary schools. Once again, we're going to be making a recommendation from this committee to consolidate 1 middle school and 2 elementary schools. And so we'll go through that process. And so once we leave here tonight, the goal is we're going to identify the top 5 schools that we think we need to consider for elementary. And then the top 2 schools we think we need to consider for middle school. Much of what we do tonight is going to be quantitative type data that we're gonna be looking at, and we're gonna be evaluating, rating, all of that good stuff. Once we identify those 5 elementary schools and those 2 middle schools, you guys are gonna, the committee members, and I'll get to what, about the committee members, what you're gonna do is identify those schools, and then we will then take the data that that you guys provide, and we're gonna go do some ranking and all of that, and then we'll come back January 12th for our next meeting at 6 o'clock in this room. January 12th, 6 o'clock in this room for our second meeting, to then go over and get deeper into those 5 elementary schools and those 2 middle schools, to then determine which of the 2 and which of the 1 that we will recommend to the board for consolidation. Everybody with me so far? Yes.
But I know like at the board meeting, they talk about a 1 year or a 2 year plan. Is the one, middle school and the 2 elementary school based on the 1 year?
1 year. We will, this will, whatever comes out of this committee will, I'm sorry, yeah, what was the question? The question was, there had been talk about a 1 year, 2 year plan. Certain things will happen in a year, certain things will happen over the course of 2 years. This recommendation will go to the board in January, the board meeting, to then consolidate those campuses for the start of next school year. So we will start the next school year with 5 middle schools, and because we currently have 6, and then 2 less elementary schools. I think we have 26 right now. So, or is it 20? 21. 21. We have 21 elementary schools. So we'll have whatever 2 months. So, answer your question? Good? All right. All right, so.
I'm sorry, one more. So that means we're gonna have to do this again next year, or this is?
No.
For 2? Okay, this is it.
No.
We should be it, sir.
Right. Yeah, we won't come back and then close more schools. We're talking about identifying those total of 3 campuses to then recommend to the board. And those campuses will have the remainder of this year, but then will be closed at the end of this year. Everybody good? All right. So with that, again, we talked about the demographer and his report. And so we came down on what I just said, those schools. Also, what we talked about is campus utilization. And we got into this capacity, max capacity versus functional capacity, and which one was which. And so what we came down on is the max capacity for elementary school, we agreed, was 750 students. Middle school, 1,250 students. And high school, 2,400 students. So functional capacity, 750 students for elementary, 1,250 for middle school, 2,400 for high school, okay? Now, the board adopted it was an 80 to 90% of that capacity. We came down on 85%, we came right in the middle on 85%. So 85% of those 3 numbers, the 750, the 1,250, the 2,400, is what the district, what we shoot for, what we will be shooting for, in the sense of saying that that's a reasonable amount of students to have at an elementary, middle, and a high school. Everybody with me so far? We good? Have a lot of
question.
Yes, ma'am.
So are we not considering functionality anymore? We're just going by capacity? I mean.
No, there's going to be several factors that we will be looking at. But because there was talk about that in last meeting, I just wanted to address it as to how we were going to move forward based on that conversation last week. And so again, 750, 1,250, 2,400. Yes, ma'am.
So I think my question falls in line with hers, that because last time we had talked like, oh, every elementary should be at this and that, but some elementaries are much smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're saying every elementary should be at 85% at 750, every middle school should be at 85% at 1250, and same with the high school, not taking into consideration its layout, its size, all
No,
of that?
that's the goal for, now, we do understand that different campuses, the layout of the schools
Okay.
and all of that, it's gonna be very, it's gonna vary. But overall, 750 for elementary, 1250 for middle, 24 for high school. That's our baseline, that's what we want to shoot for as far as schools are concerned.
And all of the schools support that, like our smallest elementary can support
They
80%
can,
is
yes,
750 and our smallest.
They're built for, what, about 12? They're built for even more than 750. More than 750 for elementary schools. But yes, to answer your question, they can support that. Yes, ma'am.
And that wouldn't leave the biggest of each level school super empty either? Like if you look at our.
That's why we're here. We're here tonight to go over all of that type of data, to find out where our schools currently are based on campus utilization. So that's what you guys are gonna be doing tonight, or seeing tonight, okay? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I guess my first one is, are non-committee members allowed to ask questions?
So, thank you for leading me into that. I appreciate it. She asked, can non-committee members ask questions during this process? We invite your feedback as non-committee members, but I do want to reiterate that we sent out a message to the principals of the campuses, and we asked them to identify at least 2 community members, non-employees, who could represent their campuses during this process, because we're trying to, as much as possible, remove any kind of bias, any kind of, because we get it, this is gonna be a pretty challenging task to do, emotions are gonna be involved, all of that good stuff, and so we want as much participation as possible, so you can ask questions, but we don't want the folks who aren't gonna be voting to kind of dominate the conversation, all right? I'm not trying to be rude, I just wanna make sure we're clear on what the kind of the ground rules are gonna be.
So then
Yes.
my question is, what is the, district plan for when the names of the campuses would be announced? Cause they're done by number, but based on the data that's out there, I'm already kind of worried that rumors are gonna fly.
Rumors are gonna fly regardless of what we do, so.
So is this something like the board votes, makes it official, campuses, 52, 53, and 54 close, and then you reveal what those were, or would they be revealed?
Oh, no,
prior?
no, ma'am. Out of this room, we're gonna take the recommendation to the board with names.
Okay.
It won't go with just a number, so
Okay.
you'll know out of this room, next meeting, January 12th, we'll know before we leave on January 12th, the names of the campuses that this committee is gonna be recommending to the board, okay? Yeah.
Also, by the end of the night, all those numbers will be revealed.
Oh, okay.
So you're gonna walk out of here tonight knowing which ones went where. What we're trying to do by putting the numbers on there is take away some of the subjectivity. If you see a particular name, you don't react to the name, you just react to the name. And then at the end of the night, once we rank them, then we'll show the names and you'll see what the names are. But purposely, we have gotten there, not by going by what the name of the campus was, but just by the quantitative data related to.
Okay, so I know last year when we went through this process with Coronado, there were things that we learned to avoid and things that we said like that went well. One thing that I think was helpful is that they were able to have polls and get answers and questions and all that. Will that be provided for these schools then, like the top, whatever, the 5 elementaries, the 2 middle? Are we gonna provide a time for the community to come then and voice their questions, concerns, fight for their school like Coronado got to?
Definitely.
Or JSTEM or the other ones in the second round last year?
What will happen from this committee is that we'll make a recommendation to the board. We won't make a recommendation and then the board vote on it. We'll make a recommendation, the board will hear it, and most likely give another month for people to come in and give feedback to the board on how they feel about the process. But then afterwards in February, we hope prayerfully, we will have made a decision So now we can start moving forward and be ready for what's gonna happen.
So the February board meeting,
Is
not the
when they
January
should,
board meeting.
in January,
We do.
this committee will make a recommendation to the board.
Sure.
The board will hear that.
Okay.
Then there should be about a month in
Got it.
between, and then they'll come back and make a decision.
Okay.
Alright, good? Okay, one of the other things that we talked about, last month was what priorities are we gonna be looking at as it relates to the campus, consolidation? What things will we need to consider? And so some of the things that we talked about were, utility costs, we talked about age of facilities, we talked about the facility assessment priorities, and the facility assessment priorities, they did we contracted with companies that went out and assessed all of the academic campuses, and they looked at, what needs to be upgraded, what needs to be repaired, things they recommend that we replace because of age or code or whatever it may be. And so they prioritize those things, priority ones, priority twos, priority threes. The priority ones were things that they said we need to be looking at right now to try and get done immediately. Again, priority one. The priority twos were things that we're looking at, say, I think it's like 3 to 5 years, we need to start addressing those things within the next 3 to 5 years. And then priority three, items were things that, 5 years down, or hey, at some point you guys need to get to them and take care of those. So, but then we'll look at what the total cost of all those 3 priorities for all of our campuses will be. And so those are things that we said we were gonna be taking a look at. But then a question came about, academic performance and whether or not we can consider that, as part of the consideration for consolidation. So I'm gonna ask Ms. Davis if she can kind of address the academic criteria as to whether or not we can use it in rules and all that good stuff.
So the question's not that simple. The reality is that it's preferable not to use it as a criteria for closing if a campus is on an accountability clock. And what that means is that if a campus is rated to or F, that means that it is being on watch, right? To ensure that it raises its academic score. And so when you close a campus that's on a D or F watch, it doesn't necessarily go away. And this is new information that TA is going to be releasing. What happens if you do consolidate one of those campuses, it will impact the accountability score of the receiving campus. It's not as clear cut, there's certain rules, but I did just have a phone call with TA, and we want to continue having those conversations with them this coming week, just so that we can be perfectly certain about what would happen if that's the decision for the planning committee. And so it's not that clear cut yet. There's going to be trainings that the commissioners actually going to start sharing in spring. You just don't want to get a perception that you might be consolidating a campus to avoid any
Yes, but we will know that information.
About
The ratings,
the ratings, right?
you will know, yes.
Okay.
Tonight.
Yes, the question was, but we will, even though, what she just spoke about as far as using academics as a criteria, we will show what the academic ratings are for each of our campuses, and you will see that too. Okay? All right, also, so the last thing,
Can I ask a clarifying question?
yes, ma'am.
So you said we will see the academic ratings, but those would not be part of the criteria, is that correct?
Correct. We're not going, there's no formula to put the ratings in to come up with a score for the campus or whatever that is. We're just showing what the ratings of the campuses are. But as she just said, we can't, there's certain rules that we have to go through if we even consider, closing a campus. But as she just said, if the committee comes down and that's one of the schools is what we're recommending, then we'll have to look at that as far as, okay, even though we didn't use academic rating as the reason for why we came up with this recommendation, we'll have to then have conversations, with TEA and whoever else to determine whether or not we're even gonna be able to do it based on the rules of academics. Make sense?
It does. I also, on the flip side, like a hybrid school, that could end up on.
Same thing. I agree. But again, it's not, no one factor will be the sole reason for why we consider consolidating schools. So it's gonna be an accumulation of all the different factors that we're gonna be looking at, so.
But not the academic factor.
Correct. Correct.
That just seems concerning.
I understand. I understand.
Well, I don't want to go right in. The concern that we have is this. They're getting ready to come out with a new state requirement that you can't close down a facility that is in low performance. This is going to be the state rule as they come out. And then if you do, they're going to put rules to it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Davis. If you do close it, you can't take a campus that is in F and move it to a campus that's a D. Because what you've done is just you just double jeopardized the campus that was a D. So that's a concern for the state because they're noticing that they're seeing a lot of campus closures across the state, and most of them have to do with lower performing campuses. So what they're gonna say is if you do something like that, there's only a certain percentage that you can send to the other school when you send it. You can't send like all of the students to one other campus if that school's struggling as well. And then even if you do send them to another campus, maybe you can't send more than 50%. So those are some of the things the state's getting ready to come up with. The reason why we're here tonight is because this is a financial issue that we're dealing with now. We're recommending a consolidation at the middle and the elementary, not for academic purposes. This is a financial corrective action plan where we can better utilize the facilities that we have and maybe decrease the number of personnel that we have to have at the campus, or decrease the amount of funds that we have to spend annually. We want to make sure that if someone comes back and looks at our process, they understand we didn't make these decisions based on academic performance. We made this as a financial decision, as a recommendation to you. Does that help a little bit? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
In consideration of the schools, you are not going to be looking at the ratings. And it just hypothetically happens that the one that needs to be closed is low performing, and you move them to a higher performing school. How does that affect the higher performing campus rating? It's gonna drop, am I right?
Currently, no. And I don't know, the question was this: if we do, because we looked at this objective financially and came back with a campus that is low performing, and we say that's the one that we want to consolidate and send somewhere else, and we move them to a higher performing campus, is there a state law in effect right now that it will affect the campus that you send those students to? No, there is not. Will there be one, and are we hearing that there's going to be something like that coming up? Yes. Will it be before we make our recommendation to the board? I don't believe so. So, now, but what we will do is try and get a better understanding of what the criteria is that's going to be involved with that, and make sure we fall within those guidelines. So if they did come back and look at our district, they'll see that we tried to do this right. Yes, ma'am.
The only one thing that it's called a bold action in trying to help a lower performing school. TEA is actually okay if you take a lower performing school and integrate it into a higher performing school. But again, it has to be done a certain way. That makes sense. But we do have a phone call tomorrow at 1 o'clock to TA to get a little bit more information before they begin their trainings in spring. And apparently, this has always been a commissioner's right. He's just getting ready to exercise that right. Does that make sense? Thank you.
All right, call my son again. Good. Okay. All right, so last thing, we did have a meeting scheduled for December 3rd, and it had to be canceled. So for our goal, we wanted to have 2 meetings, so that we can come down on the 3 schools that we're gonna recommend, take the recommendation to the board. That way, they have it, and now we can do the things like, you know, the town hall and all that, and have time to do it. But unfortunately, we couldn't have the December meeting, the December 3rd meeting. So again, we're gonna have this meeting tonight, we're gonna have a meeting, we didn't think we could get another meeting in before the winter break with everything going on, and so we scheduled the next meeting for January 12th at 6 p.m. here. And again, that meeting, we will identify the 3 schools. We will recommend, someone from this committee will recommend to the board what those 3 schools are.
And that's what we're starting.
Yes. Dr. Field is saying, so this meeting, as I spoke earlier, we're gonna be dealing with mostly quantitative data. But then the meeting on January 12th is gonna then get into the qualitative stuff, the programs, you know, all of the things you can't really measure, you know, the hard number type of stuff. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I just have a question. So I wasn't able to get the last meeting rescheduled for data, I wasn't able to. But so what I'm hearing is that we're gonna look at the capacity data, which has already been determined to be at 85% of 750, 1250, and so forth. And that would be what we use to consider no other factors, non-academic. So we already know the schools aren't at that number.
Well, not.
So how do we have, like, how are we actually making a decision if we're just ranking the data that we've already pulled? And then saying, these are the ones that are at the bottom of the list? Like, that's not the committee making the decision. That's you giving us the data and having us rank.
So you're ranking the data, and we're, as I spoke earlier, we're looking at hard numbers. The capacity, we want to show where each campus is as it relates to the capacities that we say they should be. Utility costs, all those other factors. We'll look at that. We have hard data that we're now going to look at and say, okay, this is where each campus is. Based on that, which, as you said, yes, we're going to rank them, as you just said. But then once we do that, we're coming back in January to now say, okay, based on these numbers, based on what we see, this is what the numbers would say we should consider for consolidation. What are some other factors now that we need to now consider to maybe we shouldn't look at this particular school, even though it's one of the 5. So whatever those factors are, that's what this committee then will start talking about, and it may change. It may bring a campus up and may take a campus off. Well, absolutely, absolutely.
That's right.
Okay, everybody good? You had something? She said, let's go. Guys, last thing, if you were identified by your principal, community member, non-employee, please stand. The principal in your community asks you to represent the school. You are a committee member. You are the voting. You guys are the voting members of the committee. Now, everyone else, welcome. You're here. We invite your feedback, all of that good stuff. But these are the people who will be voting on the different things that we'll be voting on to then make that recommendation to the board. So please make sure you have a pink name tag. Please make sure you signed in, your name's on the roster. If you don't have a pink name tag, someone will get that to you. But I just wanted to identify the actual committee members for the growth and plan meeting. All right? Thank you all. Have a seat. Thank you very much. All right. So we're gonna go through. So this is our agenda. We're gonna be looking at, again, the years that schools were built, any additions or renovations that the schools have had, the current enrollment of the school. Yes, sir.
So committee members, you've received sheets that look like this, one for elementary and one for middle. And what's going to happen is, in the next slide, I believe, Mr. Brooks is gonna start going through the different categories. We've given you the opportunity to kind of mark on your sheet what you see on the slides. And if you know that there's gonna be 5 major ones for elementary and 2 major ones for middle, then you can start marking on them next to the number of the campus in which you see that they have criteria that you see on the slides that will lead you to believe this should be one of the 5, or this should be one of the 2 when you go to middle school. Did I lose anybody on that? All right, thank you so much.
All right, if you're a committee member and you're missing something, come see Ms. Sabine up there at the front.
You're missing tags, you're missing papers,
And a tag.
sheets, any of that stuff.
You need that. So again, we're gonna be looking at the years that schools were built, any additions or renovations that those schools have had over the last few years. We're gonna look at current enrollment for the campuses, campus capacity again, the annual utility expenses, the priorities, what's it gonna cost to upgrade and repair things on the campuses. And then what we'll do, you guys just kind of go around, do a little gallery walk. If you wanna, discuss different stuff, ideas, different things, you can go ahead and jot down so that when we come back in January, those are things that we can then talk about, as we get into the qualitative stuff and determining which of these campuses we think we need to, recommend. All right, everybody good? All right, let's go. Anybody missing any sheets, still need something? One of those?
I'm getting my steps in tonight.
All right, first, we have our elementary schools. As you can see, we have 20 elementary schools, 21 actually, but I'm sorry, I'm still horizontally sitting on. So we have 20. We have 20. So as you can see, as we look at it, 1 through 6. In our legend here, any school that's 41 to 60 years old falls in that category up there, 1 through 6. So we got 1968 through 1984. And out of that group, if you look at it, at the additions and renovations, we have some bond work for 2022, but if you look at campus number 2, built in 69, had several things as far as additions and renovations from 1982, 85, 94, 20, and then have 22 bond stuff to do. Campus number 4, built in 78, had some additions in 82, 83, 92, 20, and 22. And then the next group, that yellow group, these are campuses that are 21 to 40 years old. And out of those, campus number 7 was built in 1987 and had four different years of some type of renovation or addition to it. And then the last group, 20 years or less, 2008 to the present. And we have a couple of schools, 14 and 16, that had some renovations and additions done to them. So these are the ages of our campuses. We're not doing high school because we're not recommending a high school for consolidation at this time. Just to highlight the additions, the question was, why are some of the lines blue? And we were just highlighting that some of these campuses had either additions to them or renovations to them, and so as we're going through the process of determining whether or not we're going to consolidate, we want to look at, okay, how much have we spent on a school for renovations and additions that brought it up to par, and would we want to still consider consolidating that school based on that information?
I'd also say this, Myra, excellent question. The reason why we highlighted some of those other buildings is we're gonna come back, remember, on the 12th, and then we're gonna start talking about qualitative, more subjective stuff. If you look at some of the other ones that have been built new, I'd be asking myself, why is 17 or why does 14 have so many renovations?
And 17 built in 2016, have 19.
Well, because what you're gonna find out is that, some of those are rebuilds. Let's say Converse. So if it was the original Converse, it could have had additions or renovations to it in 96, but then we built a new Converse. And then now you're seeing more renovations as we go through. So once we start showing something, I guess I should have said that. Sorry, my bad.
2008 was a new school,
I'm saying, let's wait and find out, but those are some of the questions that you could ask. So then later on, although it may not come to the top, when you start thinking qualitatively, you can say, if we're having this many problems in the campus now, maybe that's one of the ones that should come. You know what I'm saying? So keep those things in mind, and we just wanted to highlight that for you. But this isn't simply a numbers deal. It's for you guys to just get a better understanding of where we are. And we're gonna start showing the names of those campuses.
Okay, and I mean, this is kind of a specific question, but, so for school number 5, built in 1978, so it was RTC 91 and UC 08, but why wouldn't it have been part of the 2022 bond, or the 2020, because even a school from 08 is aging, people aren't, that the schools are. And so, has there been work done on that campus, just not through a bond? And that's just, so we don't necessarily know the full scope of all the work that's been done on these, just through bonds.
This is just bond work.
Stephanie, that's a good point. What we put up here were major renovations to the campus. Now, we may come in and change the tile in a room or paint a wall or something like that. But if it was a major renovation, then it's on here. What you're gonna find is that some of our campuses, based on where they're built, they don't need major renovation. when you get into the areas of our district where the soil moves a lot, you find us having to go in and do some major renovations in terms of our facilities department. In addition, if you guys remember 2016, one of the things that happened was that hailstorm. It came through and it looked like somebody shot everything up, you know what I mean? So we had to do a lot of roof changes during 2016 as well. But some of the
And
buildings.
are those on here, like, is there a price point that we're like, okay, if it's over, whatever, $1 million, it's listed?
I defer to the facilities department. I think what was the price point?
What's the question?
The question is that we put on here the major renovations to each of the campuses that we have listed of the 20.
What was considered a major?
Right, what's
What was
considered
that
major?
criteria?
We're talking millions of dollars.
In one go, so like, but if one school's having consistent small problems, would that be on my list?
You can also, if that's an information point, data point that you want access to, we do have work order information.
Okay.
To your point, Ms. Tennyson, though, we tried to leave it for major stuff that we did at the campus to try and improve it. And what you see is in some of the older facilities, we've had to make some of those major renovations. But also in some of the newer ones, we've had to do that. So I would look for those names when you see them pop up. We said major renovations, and major renovations usually have to do with a bond. A facilities inspection team will come in and say, hey, these are things that you need to get done, not unlike those priorities that you're gonna see coming. He just stated that he felt like the major renovations that have been listed on this template are ones that were north of $1 million.
Yes, sir. I
So
mean,
we did $1 million worth of improvement
Easily.
in each of these years to the ones that you see listed on those years that we did.
Good. All right. Excellent. So the next one is the campus, elementary utilization. And as I talked, about the campus capacities, we are going with the 750 for elementary school as the functional capacity. And then 85% of that 750 number is what the functional capacity would be. So based on that, as you can see, campus number for any campuses that are 51, if we scroll down, the optimal utilization. Campuses, what is it, 5 down, so from 91% down to 111%, that's considered optimal utilization. Okay? They are within the parameters of the functional capacity of 85% of the functional capacity. The next group, the acceptable utilization, the orange, we got 74%, 76%, and 84%. And then your underutilized schools are those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 there that are considered underutilized based on the capacity percentage of 85% of 750. Campus number 1 at 51%. Campus number 10, 54%. Campus number 16 at 62%. Campus number 8, 68%. Campus number 4 at 69%. Any questions? Those are our capacities. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted, like, it just keeps staying in my head, like,
Uh-huh.
once the closures of the school, elementary schools, are the students been to different schools, or is it just one school that they go to?
No, we would, so the question was, once we make the recommendation for campus consolidation, will the campus that's being consolidated, will all those students go to one school? And the answer is no. We're gonna have to look at redrawing lines again, the boundary lines. And so the students will have to go to different schools. And the goal would be to try and get to the schools that are closer, you know, as far as their neighborhoods. But we wouldn't send all of the students in one school all to another school.
And is there the most that a teacher can have, like the ratio?
The ratio would still be, as far as elementary, I think the ratio is 22-1. And so that would still be, the board adopts that, right? That ratio, and so that's, we would have to still maintain that ratio. So it would be our job to have to redistribute those students enough to still meet that ratio. Make sense? Yes, sir. So, I knew this question was coming, so I was ready. So, those numbers were numbers that principals provided to us when we were going back and forth with that maximum versus functional versus principal, all of that. So what we did was, we had the principals basically just go to their classrooms and tell us, how are you using your building? What are your classrooms being used for? And based on that, we would get numbers back from the principal. Well, the problem with that, or the concern about that was, well, if you're gonna have principals, you know, change the principal, whatnot, a different principal may use that campus in a different way. And so we wanted to standardize how we use the campus capacity for utilization purposes. And that's why the 750, the 1250, and the 2400 for consistency purposes for the campus. Make sense?
Well, I'm just trying to set the fact that 750 would work, even though
the 750 would work, but they would not be able to use the campus the same way they're trying to. So we would have to come in and say, hey, we're gonna move this program from this campus somewhere else. So now you can use this campus to teach, you know, general students, or you may have to do this afternoon, or whatever it may be. But we could put 750 in. Because to your point, it's not always the best. Yes.
So one of the things I wanted to point out is, she didn't ask, I was waiting, why are they highlighted blue? So SOC means school of choice. OOD is out of district. So as you look at the current enrollment of each of those schools, if you look at that column with school of choice and out of district, that means that school has that number of students attending that school, but it's not zoned for that school. Okay? So the zone 4 campus number is, like for campus number 1, it says 220 for zone 4. That means those students actually live in the neighborhood and are zoned for that school. All the other students that are attending that school are coming in from out of district or school of choice from a different school within our district. Yes, ma'am.
Might be a complicated question. Do we know where the majority of the out-of-district transfers come from? And should we consider that we may not want to lose some of that because of our attendance and
I can tell you that it's not predominantly out of district. It's predominantly school of choice. So once we put the names up there, it's gonna become very relevant to everybody. Oh, that's because it's Olympian, it's fine arts. And it's an attractive, innovative procedure that they do over there, so a bunch of kids flow to it. Or it may be Ed Friends, it's a leadership academy, a bunch of kids want to go there. So, yeah, and you don't want to not have that program, so that's why you see the numbers. Now, don't get me wrong, one of them's gonna be Escondido. And what borders Escondido is East Central. But if you wanna go to an elementary school in East Central, you're gonna take a 40-minute ride, or you can go 5 minutes up the road and then come to Escondido. So a lot of those parents choose to just bring their students to Judson, to Escondido. So those numbers are large as well.
Do you know if they're planning to build a closer elementary school in that district, and if that will affect us in the future? I'm just curious.
I know that they are planning to build them, but not close enough to where it's 5 minutes away.
I have a question, I'm just gonna use number one, this is the first line. So I see that there are 220 students in the attendance zone with a maximum capacity of 600. And so, that school, whichever school it is listed as like the highest number for not matching up with the capacity. So I'm wondering, is it more an issue of how the boundaries were drawn? Like they weren't redrawn to account for that the school could hold 600 students?
No, ma'am, the boundaries have been the same for years. What you're gonna find on a lot of the schools where you see the numbers go down in terms of the people who are zoned for that area, it's the age of the neighborhood. When, this is really, I'm dating myself. When we moved to Live Oak, when I was a kid, this was the suburbs. We were outside the city, and everybody was like, you guys live out there. Well, Live Oak's not really out there anymore. It's kind of inside the city, really. And what happens with those neighborhoods is when you start off and you're out there, they become real young neighborhoods. As they age, like me, then they become your grandma and grandpa neighborhoods, where there's not a lot of kids that are in there. And then when you have great grandma and great grandpa in there, well then now, unless your grandkids are moving in that house, there's just not a lot of students that flow to the campuses. And sometimes you get regentrification where someone else will move in and make it more modern, and it'll be more attractive to the younger home buyer. But mostly, they buy on the outside in the suburbs. Coronado's an example, Live Oak's an example, some of the other places. So it's not the attendance lines, it's just the maturity of the neighborhoods.
All right, good. Yes, sir.
Okay, so 750, if you take that, I will just line one, the max capacity is 600, but it's like 637, but it has to be, it would be.
We're using functional capacity, the 750.
What's the difference between maximum? What is that?
That was the capacity that principals were using where they were, say, and I know we always use this example, but if a campus is using a classroom as a bookstore or as a school store or something like that, then it can't put students in there because of how they use the campus. So because there's so many variables to that based on the campuses, and then if a new principal comes in and wants to change all of that, then that number would change. So functional capacity is standard for all of the elementary schools. And so to have a standardization, we chose to go with 750 for the functional capacity. And then the utilization rate or the utilization percentage is always based on the functional capacity, which is 85% of that functional capacity.
So you're just saying that the maximum capacity is what it would be nice for right now. It's actually hold the 637.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Right up. Yes, ma'am.
So when the schools are consolidated, will the in-zone students take priority over the out-of-zone students?
So her question was, when the schools are consolidated, will the in zone or students who live within the school zone have priority as far as attending that school over students who would be coming in as school of choice or out of district. Students who are zoned for a school go to that school first. Is that correct?
You're absolutely correct. But what you're gonna find is that on some of these campuses, let's say Olympia, Fine Arts Academy, it works. Even if we were to select that campus to consolidate, you don't wanna lose the Fine Arts Academy. You don't wanna lose the leadership. So I'm not saying through consolidation, I would recommend that we then do away with these innovative programs because they are working. So what we have to do is find a way to consolidate, but maintain the program as well, if that makes sense. So, bingo. When we moved J-STEM from Judson Middle, we moved it, that whole, into Kitty Hawk, and it worked because J-STEM worked. So what you're gonna find is when we show the names to some of these numbers, they're going to be attached to some of these innovative programs, and we're not gonna wanna lose them. Now, to your point, some of them are just schools where a bunch of kids wanna go there because of a situation like Escondido. But if we were to move, then we would make the kids at Escondido who are in zone there the priority before we took into account all the people who are coming in from the city. So yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Will we still be leaving room for kids who like come in mid-year to their meeting so that they can attend their zone school? Because I know there were like a few years ago, schools would get full and then people would move into the neighborhood in February and there would be room for them in there. So when we're consolidating, are we gonna leave a certain percent or a certain number or something like that for military or whoever might move into that neighborhood or the apartments or whatever?
We try and always do that. Matter of fact, the current rule is that even if we let school of choice students come in, if you live in that area and you go to enroll, you get in. We're not gonna keep people out of the campus if they live in that area. Even if we can, we try and allow them to go to the campus. Now, sometimes the schools get just so big that we say, hey, we will provide transportation over to this campus, especially if one grade's so high that we're gonna have to come up with another teacher that goes there. We'll offer transportation, and they have brothers and sisters, we'll offer transportation to all of the families if they choose to go to another campus. But we try and always let people who move in those neighborhoods go to the neighborhoods. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, next one. So this is our priority one in red is the amount of funds needed to fix, repair, replace, whatever at that campus. And the priority one, based on the assessment, are things that need to be addressed immediately. No, it's sorted from highest to lowest.
Of what? The priority condition? No, it's not, because it goes to 2 million and then 33 million.
The index, okay. It's sorted by, no, there's no. It's sorted by index.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
It's sorted by index. And if you move down to the legend, and this index, it's a rubric that we use that basically good condition campus, 15%, 0 to 15% index, facility condition index, says that campus is in good condition. Okay?
Can I help a little?
Yes, sir.
All right. So if you look at this, you're gonna find three categories. When Mr. Brooks first started, he said that the red is the stuff that they said, hey, you guys need to get to this. The yellow one is the stuff that within a few years you need to get to this. And then the green one is, you guys need to get to this when you get to it. Make sense? If you were to add all of those up, and then you take the price per square foot of what it would take modern day to rebuild a campus, what Mr. Brooks did was he said, this is what it would take to replace. Now, based on what it would take to replace versus what it would take for the total repairs of priority 1, 2, and 3, then you come up with a facility condition index, meaning this is how much the school's worth, basically. This is how much we need to spend on it to fix it. This is the index of what it would cost. Then he ranked those, and at the bottom where you see the green ones, we're saying that's good condition based on what a normal architect will tell you the facility condition is. But when you get into the orange area from 18 to 38%, then now you're teetering on, and to put this in common terms, and I hate to oversimplify this, but if you go out and buy a house, and you start building, and it's one of those fixer-uppers, and you start spending $200,000 to fix it up, but it's appraised for $100,000, you really gotta start asking yourself, what are we doing? You know what I mean? So what we're saying is the percentage of how close you're getting to what the campus is actually worth is based on this index. So when you see one at about 38%, we're still not at, it takes more to fix it than what it's worth, but we're getting closer to that point. Does all that make sense? Yeah. Question?
Yes.
There you go, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So, right, so I did flip through ahead, I have ADHD, so I gotta keep my mind engaged. But I didn't see on any of the slides, like the 10-year realtor mark. Like for instance, I'm just gonna throw it out there, there's 2 neighborhoods building around Copperfield, there's 2 huge apartment complexes in front of Coronado Village. Like, somewhere in this presentation, did we look at the 10-year realtor mark too, like in population wise?
That was in the last meeting that we had with the demographer.
We've had a few meetings with the demographer. The last one, they came, and then last year they came and gave our in-person presentation about the 10-year plans and what they project. And they went into apartments, they went into vacant lots, they went into everything about what they projected out for 10 years, and that's.
But is it included with the?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if
That was
that's
my question.
yes.
Is this included with all the stuff we're looking at today?
I don't know.
It's not included in the number, because what we have up there now is current enrollment. But it has been included in terms of how we plan to address the growth. And we haven't bumped up against one where there's so much increase that we're not gonna be able to manage it. If we thought we were gonna bump up against that, then we would be redrawing attendance.
That was just my concern, like if we decide to consolidate a campus, but yet it looks like there's going to be growth, that might not be the best decision.
That's part of the qualitative data that we were gonna be looking at in January as far as enrollment projections. As I started this meeting today, we're looking at a decline in enrollment as far as what the market was projecting. But there are areas of growth within our district where homes are being built and whatnot. So when we look at that data, if we find that a particular area, is saying that we are possibly going to be gaining students, then yes, that's something that we would have to have as a criteria or a factor to decide whether or not we want to recommend this particular school for consolidation. Make sense? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, question. If we have kiddos that are sent to our campus because of a program, whether it be bilingual or ESL or Apple or like whatever, are they considered in our numbers under school of choice? Or are they the
regular enrollment numbers since they're not really in our boundary, but they're sent there for that
For
program.
this purpose, school choice.
Right, for this purpose, it's school choice. Yes, ma'am.
So STEM program would be considered school choice?
Oh, yes.
Maybe you guys have spoken about this in a previous meeting, but let's say Ed France is up for, you know, us voting that school off. Will you guys move the Leadership Academy somewhere else to provide, so we don't lose out, the district doesn't lose out on those, academies?
That is your question. And I refuse to answer it because that's going to come from this committee. We really don't want to make it look like the board or the administration is directing your recommendation. We would literally sit and ask this committee, what are your thoughts? Now, if you ask Rob Fields, I tell you in a second, you don't want to lose Leadership Academy. It works. But I need you guys to ask us those questions so we can give you the feedback, and then you make the decision on what our recommendation is going to be from the board. But I really don't want anyone to come back and say the administration knew what they wanted and they just threw it on him. We are trying, I know they're going to say it anyway, but we are jumping over hurdles trying to make sure that when they do say that, this committee can come back and say that's not true. They didn't even show us the names of the facilities when they went through the objective data. They just went through it and let us make our decisions based on not even know what purpose we were talking about. Gotcha.
Where are these lines?
But excellent point. That's what we're gonna go over on January 12th.
Can I just ask one more?
Yes, ma'am.
And just for purposes, because I know you said earlier that if we do have to skip the top 5, and as a committee, if we don't agree with the top 5 or feel like another state should be up there or moved around, we are gonna have that opportunity.
Yes.
Rock, paper, scissors,
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I did, so like one of the, it's not this slide, but the previous slide. Like I'm also wondering the attendance from out of district or out of attendance zone. To me, that tells me if the number is high, that there's something really special about that.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
Even if the building's old.
Right.
Right, and so I almost am looking at the ones that have few students coming from out of the district. Because people are not like driving to bring their kids there. And so I think there's more than one way to look at like this data that the old is who has the less number of kids. I think there's a lot of different ways we could look at and interpret which schools are doing really well and which schools are not.
And that's the qualitative information that we'll go over and you guys will bring up, because that's exactly the type of things. Because again, tonight is quantitative, here are the hard numbers, here's what it is. Perfect example of, okay, we can look at these numbers, but people can look at them and interpret them in different ways. So we want to be able to hear all of that kind of stuff when we get into the second meeting to then come down to the final decision on these are the campuses we recommend.
I have a question. I know we're not talking about 2 meetings, but just from everything that we've been talking about, this seems like it's gonna be more than just 2 meetings.
That's why we were trying to shove in that meeting. When we started going through it, we were like, man, it's gonna take longer. So we tried to put in the December 3rd meeting, but when we planned it, it was a good time to have it, but it was outside of the window to actually post. So it could be a board meeting. So when we were unable to do it, then we were pressed back to this. Then we said, we'll push and have it on January 12th. But to your point, as we get into this, as the qualitative part starts taking a little bit longer, then I want to say thank you in advance. And I apologize in advance, but we're gonna ask y'all to come in a little bit more and see if we can squeeze this out and get it done. Because we don't want it to be a rush.
I think we agree, we do want
Yeah.
to make sure we did.
I wanna make sure fair.
I think some of us work better when we're sitting alone at our computers, so if we can get all the data to look at home in quiet without distractions, that would be awesome.
We have no problem under the code of, keep it to yourself,
Yeah, that's fine.
sending this out to the members of the committee. Because you need the information to be able to study it. I just don't need to see it in the Express News with my head down in that picture. Look what they're doing over, you know, so, help me out. But I want to do as much as we can to give you guys the information to study, to make a decision, as we go through the process.
Okay, I feel like I'm asking too many questions, but I just don't understand why, like, some of the other data wouldn't be considered part of the quantitative data piece.
Such as?
Like star scores, that type of thing, like enrollment from outside of the district. Although that number is on here, like, are those things that we can consider?
You can consider anything on this sheet that you see. When we talk about the star scores, and I really want to be clear about this. If you read the newspaper today, I have to read everything. They just closed, they're taking over 3 more districts. And the reason why is because they're looking at the performance of the campuses. Well, what you're finding is the performance of I'm trying not to make this political, but there's a reason why schools aren't, I mean, well, no, the way that they're doing this, you can't have this many campuses across the state of Texas that are struggling if there's not something that we're doing that's making the schools look at it. But they're using that, now this is on recording too. All I'm saying is this, we can't use star data and say we're closing down that campus because of their performance. You cannot do that. Because the state will step in and say, well, you guys aren't even trying to make the campus better. You're just trying to close it down. And we're not doing it. We're saying we're making this decision because it's a financial decision. And we're hoping and praying that everyone understands that. We're not making decisions in here about campus consolidation based on campus performance. We're making it because we're facing a financial situation where we're forced to decrease our expenditures by a considerable amount of money. Does that make sense? So that's our priority. Yes, sir.
Okay, I guess like a follow-up kind of to what you're saying. In not considering these lower performing schools, are we putting the average and higher performing schools higher on the cutting block or chopping block or whatever? Are we punishing them almost for performing well?
Again.
Like, could it be,
well, what we're saying is, we're not saying that we don't expect this committee to not make a recommendation on a school that may be performing well for consolidation, but you didn't get there because of the school. You got there because of the financial situation that we find ourselves in and trying to make sure that we're being financially efficient.
You're saying we're gonna make a decision to try and save the most money, not close the school because the scores are in spite of it.
But if a low-performing campus gets recommended for closure,
It won't be because of that.
it won't be because of
so
that.
it's an option. If that comes out and we look at it all and it, or like this one or whatever,
That's the
it
recommendation you
will
should
not
make.
be an option because they're
Right.
a whatever.
Correct. We're not saying you can't make the recommendation. We just want to be clear that the recommendation wasn't based on academic performance.
And I want to reiterate what Dr. Miggs, I want to reiterate what she said, is that there are a whole host of rules, and that we are even going to be talking tomorrow about it, as it relates to campuses that are currently being watched on the ratings list, and what procedures would have to be followed if that's something we're trying to consider. So we're not trying to deter you from saying don't recommend one. We're just saying let's follow the data as the data is, have the conversations we need to have have those conversations, and then have to do our due diligence if that's the route we're wanting to take. Yes, sir.
Is transportation like relatively the same for children all in schools, or is it very different? Like, from
Transportation will be affected once we make this recommendation and we consolidate 3 schools. Our, Mr. Stewart, our Director of Transportation, will have to, and he started some preliminary work on, some scenarios basically, on what it would look like if particular schools were to be consolidated. Where would we send those students, and how much would it cost to bus those students to the new schools, and a bunch of different scenarios. Because again, we didn't want anyone thinking that we've already made a decision and we already know the schools. I called them up and said, hey, just give me a bunch of scenarios, a bunch of different scenarios, and what would it look like if schools are considered for consolidation. So
Scenario for every school, because that's what would have been the right thing to do. I mean, I know it's a lot of work, but to consider everything fairly, I think we have to look at all the criteria equally across the board.
we can, no, to answer your question, no, we did not do every school. But we can do that. And if we go back and look at the rest, all of the other data, we can definitely do that.
Why would you consider training?
I want to be clear. We can't do that. We don't have enough time. Because what you're saying is, and let's just go to the if we were to consider Cibolo Creek, then how would we disperse to the other 5 middle schools? So we'd have to draw up transportation scenarios, sending those kids to all of the other 5. And then, if we consider Kitty Hawk, same thing. A bunch of different scenarios trying to separate Kitty Hawk, because you can't just take one middle school and put it in another. You have to separate it a bunch of different ways. And then we would have had to do that 6 times, 6 different ways. They can't get their job done if they're doing that. Now, what we can do is you guys can come back and say, hey, based on what we're seeing here, this is the way that we're seeing we should go. And then once we get those 2 options, now I need you to draw up how we can split the district up all over and send these students to different areas to where we're even up. Because once again, we can't just close one and send them all somewhere. We have to even it up.
And I just asked that because you said Cibolo Creek, but Cibolo Creek isn't geographically, doesn't make sense if all the other schools are closer, and that one's way out. So there's a lot of questions I have about that too. And so
we'll be able to get to that on the qualitative part. Tonight, we just want to get through the numbers and see where we're at. And we're nearing the end on the elementary. So because we've gone through the process, it won't take as much to get through the middle schools. And then at that point, having sat down and kind of marked up the sheets, then we're going to have everybody who's a voting member then go up and start putting your dots on those campus numbers that you saw. And then we're going to have Mr. Brooks and Ms. Sabine come up and then show you all these slides, but with the campus names in.
I just have one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious, like, there were so many renovations done with the 2020 and the 2022 bonds, and then there was a new elementary built in 2025. And I'm just curious why a new campus was built when there were so many schools that are being renovated that had not hit their functional capacity. Because that seems like that's put us in this situation.
I have that same question. Demographer information changed. Pretty simple.
In 2025, that's
Well,
When they start building, or when
you asked a good question. We went out for the bond. The reason why it says the 2022 bond is we went out for it, I believe, in, was it 2021 or 2022 the first time? So we went out for it in 2021. And those numbers were based on what we were seeing in terms of increase that were being projected by our demographer back then. But then growth patterns started to shift. And charters came in, and things changed a little bit after. I know we're not supposed to use COVID as an excuse, but things changed. So now what happened is we saw, but we had already got this approved in 2022. One of the rules is that if you go out for a bond and you say this is what you're gonna do with the money, that's what you're gonna do with the money. Or you gotta not take the money, give the money back, and that turns into a big deal. So we can't go out for a bond in 2022 and then say, hey, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna build a middle school and an elementary, and then get those funds and not go do that. So that was a couple of years later in 2025, but we were already obligated that that's what we had to do.
Dr. Fields?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I apologize, but if I may say also, because I'm one of the ones that worked really hard in 2021 with Dr. Ball speaking at City Council, and that bond failed, 2021. And that was a November, I believe, election, if I'm not mistaken. I remember some of us in this room, and she left, we met again because it came back. And they said, let's do it again. And our initial thought was in May, first and foremost, it's a May election. Nobody votes in May elections. Why would we do it again? This was lost. And I'm gonna be very honest with you. The growth at that time, but Uvalde happened. And safety was paramount on every parent and grandparent and Thea and Theo and Abuela and Abuelos. That was the thing, safety. A lot of our older campus, my son was at Olympia, great campus, but we could walk right in and out. We didn't have the safety vestibules that a lot of the newer schools had.
All of the schools.
Okay, but you get to your point. So I like it when I get questioned by, and I'm held accountable, and they're like, well, you said this and that, you block walk, we did it, now look at the situation we're in. I think there's a much bigger picture to it, and I know they can't say it, but a lot of it has to do with Austin. Public education's under attack. Now, am I saying we're a perfect district? Did we make every right decision? We did not. I don't think any district is perfect. But the situation that we're in right now, crunch time. We gotta put the paper to the pen and make some hard decisions.
I agree with that, but I think we need to do it right.
I agree.
Fairly.
I agree.
You know, like there's gonna be rumors that, we know that there's one school that is being looked at.
And we talked about it at the last
And
meeting.
we did. And so, me, as a new community member, I'm here to stand up for my community and my area and the kids and our teachers.
And it's also helpful to have the district speak and not board members.
Right.
I would say this, you guys, we're gonna get to that on the qualitative part. The only thing I would ask, especially for all of the voting members of the council, I have no problem answering any question and saying, hey, you guys make a good point. Don't make it based on like and dislike. Let's be able to substantiate it, so when you go in there and make this recommendation, you can say, this is the recommendation that should be made. Check the facts, check the numbers, check what we're saying in terms of theory. This is what we need to do going forward. This is our recommendation. But it won't be based on, well, this is just what we do. You know what I mean? All right, so let's go ahead and see if we can, what's the last thing?
I don't want to be a community member that's recommending the schools for closure.
No one does.
I mean, I don't wanna do that,
Yeah.
but I'm upset that that's the only option, right? Like, I'm not hearing in-school charters, I'm not hearing like what we're doing to like combat like the charters and like people that are leaving the district. I'm not seeing like what are we doing to change the B so that people wanna come to Judson, because then we'll, like, the schools would be full, and I feel like we're putting Band-Aids on something rather than really solving the problem. And you said, I wrote it down, you had said something about we're always gonna have this declining enrollment. Well, then we're gonna be closing schools every year. Like, there has to be something done. Like, I've lived in this
district forever. My daughter went to school, graduated from Judson. It's a great district, and I don't want to be a community member that's recommending schools to be closed. It hurts teachers, it hurts kids, it hurts communities, and I just feel like the way this is, it's just putting me in such a tough situation.
If you heard, we're always gonna have declining schools, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
There are things that we're doing, and then if you wanna know what we're doing to bring up the scores, we brief on that at least quarterly in every board meeting about what we're doing to bring up our academic performance and the superintendent performance program. In addition, some of the things that we are doing to combat the charter programs are these innovative programs. We started a leadership academy, we started a fine arts, P-Tech, we've got help at the high school levels. And what we're seeing is this: although from K through 5, we're seeing students go to the charter programs, we're seeing an increase of students coming back at the secondary level, even at middle school. Now, we knew that once the ball started bouncing and the band started playing and all of that stuff, we were gonna pull it back, because charter programs don't have that. So we expected it at 9th grade. We didn't expect it at 6th, 7th, and 8th. But that's when they're starting to come back, and it's because we're offering not just football and band, but baseball. You know, we're doing a lot of stuff with athletics, so it's starting to be a lot more attractive for kids as they return. We just gotta get into the K through 5 and see if we can pull them back that way too. And the way that we're doing that is we don't wanna lose these programs like our bilingual program or our fine arts or our leadership.
What if we leave everything the way it is? What are the repercussions?
If we left things the way that they are, then that would, real talk. We just did a financial corrective action plan. And the amount of money that we put down for the consolidation of these 3 campuses to decrease the deficit is about 5.5 million. So that would be the amount of money that we would not be able to take advantage of in decreasing the deficit. But we went for, there's 2 ways, and I've given this analogy a lot. If you find yourself in a home and you're spending more money on a yearly basis than what you're bringing in terms of revenue, you can do that as long as you have money in your savings account. But once you run out of money in your savings account, you're either gonna bring in more money or you're going to check your expenditures and decrease them to the amount of money that you have coming in. So what we tried to do is a fader, which would have allowed us to bring in more money, and then we would have been able to maintain without making drastic cuts. That was unsuccessful. So what we hear is make the cuts. So when we hear make the cuts, this is our recommendation. We can close down a middle school and not have kids uncomfortable at campuses. We can close down 2 more elementaries and not have kids uncomfortable at campuses. But when you say, hey, Dr. Fields, fix it, I'm trying to fix it. And this is the recommendation to get it done.
Prioritize school teachers.
Right, so,
I don't know if I agree on the Vader meant a lot of people voted, didn't mean, I mean, obviously, you know, it probably happened. A lot of people didn't vote no because they wanted schools to close. So I think that's people had other reasons for voting no, not because of closing schools.
I'm not trying to say, if I gave the impression in that explanation that people voted no because they wanted schools to close, that wasn't it at all. But what we do know is because they voted no, we don't have the funds that are coming in. We can't run out of money. So the only way to correct this is to check your expenditure. So now we're checking every program that we purchase, every position that we hire for, And we're checking the usage of every facility that we have in the district. And what are the best ways to do this and decrease the funds? But you can't say no, cut the 30 million, and then.
But it's a result of the Vader, people that vote no for the Vader because we want to do this.
I agree wholeheartedly. I am not trying to say people voted no for the Vader. I don't know what their motivations were. But, and I'm not trying to say, but what I am saying is that now this is our opportunity to course correct. So this is our recommendation. So if your original question was, what happens if we don't change anything? Then part of the 16.8 million that we just recommended for decrease that we were able to find is decreases to our expenses. 5.5 million of that would then go away and put us back down to 11. Yes, sir.
All right, next factor is the utility cost per.
I mean, it's not rocket science.
We get it. You can figure out probably what school, you can get at least 2 of them probably. But again, we're trying to do our best to just make it as unbiased as possible, so that we can, get through the numbers and just show you the hard numbers. And we'll get into all the other ancillary factors as we continue this process. Next one. Campus utilization for middle school. Again, functional capacity for middle school is 1250. And I want to say something here because I think it was you who brought up a point last meeting about a certain school, that because it's a middle school, it was built, for high school, and so this is one of the reasons why, to standardize middle school, we went with 1250 as the number and not what that particular school was built for, which was a much larger number, because it obviously then would have skewed the results for that particular campus. So 69%, the color coding is optimal utilization, acceptable utilization, and then underutilized. and that's kind of where we fall. And then, again, the school of choice and the out-of-district transfer students. One school number 3 is 743, but it has 128 students. Number 5 has 152. Number 2 has 151. Again, I don't remember her name, but to her point, you can look at those numbers in several different ways as far as, maybe that campus is doing something that's attracting, these students, and maybe other campuses aren't doing stuff. And so students want to leave and go to a different school. But these are the numbers for campus utilization for middle school.
JSTEM combines with a certain middle.
It is.
So really the enrollment, I would assume, is half, really 400, I'm just saying, we have 400 JSTEM.
That's a good, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's what, I was saying, while I was thinking about us considering those things, because we did move JSTEM out of Judson. And that was because of Civil Creek, because of the, so, because if they didn't, it would have only had 400 students.
Exactly. Right.
But now Judson is more of that was being underutilized, but it still has more than it was a balancing thing,
No, well, so I think though we should have added 7, just so we could understand that some of those numbers are Jason. Because let's just say, for instance, let's decide to move Jason to Civil Creek, or move Jason to Curtin. It doesn't matter. I think those 400 students need to be identified.
Yes. I think
Is that a fair? Is that
we're talking about. I honestly think as the adjacent parent, and my kids got one more year there, but I feel like those teachers would just quit if they had to move again right now. Like,
I don't know.
Well,
I don't, but I think
we're doing what it was a process for them. I'm just throwing that out there.
If it's right, if we're looking at qualitative and quantitative data, we need to see those 400 students.
Right.
Correct.
You want to see if it's school of choice?
We can, I mean, you can do that.
We basically identify it in some way.
Yes.
Right. Understood.
Right. Right.
We'll do that.
Right. Also, the transportation, trying to say something like Jason centrally, I think is helpful. Transportation, like on Jason, that's all. I think if it was like, was involved in the decision in the first place, we were, and so we weren't. We weren't, yeah. I'm not talking to you.
But I really want to be clear. I want to get through the numbers part, but I want to say that these are all of the things that we do have to take into consideration when it comes to quality. And we need to be able to say, hey, is there another way to drop the JSTEM or whatever?
So, the conditions of the schools, as far as how much it's going to cost to renovate, repair, replace, good condition, 0-14, fair condition, 2738, poor condition, 56 to 66. And again, this is how much it's going to cost to repair costs versus replacement. Repair costs versus replacement.
Yes, sir. What is an example of the priority?
Excellent question. If you were to look at, we're going to go to, well, we'll just do some unmasked. Is Ruben in here? Or Ben? Did they come back in? Can you grab one of them? So in the 2022 bond, there are some major renovations that need to be done at one of these campuses. If you look across, it's because of the age of the facility. And now, I can have them tell you, but if you were to look at number 3 is Judson. So when we unveil, you're gonna see that number 3 is Judson. sorry, spoiler. But because of your question, I want to make sure that we answer. What are some of the things in the priority assessment under facility priority 1 for Judson Middle School that's involved in that 54,000?
A lot of the HVAC, the chillers, the mechanical equipment, the plumbing, a lot of the infrastructure that you don't see. On this particular one, we have a new roof. That was one of the ones that was caught up in the hailstorm. And then we also have a lot of the broken sidewalks, drives, pretty much.
So when you
That's
look
all at Judson?
yes, and when you look at it, one may say, well, what happened over at Judson? Nothing happened at Judson. It lasted. It did well. Trust me, there used to be 3,000 kids over at that campus. 4 years. It served us well. But when you ride a horse hard,
It serves us well. Excuse me.
it serves us well. I apologize. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes.
It serves us well. But we gotta do some repair work. You know what I'm saying? We gotta put some money into it. So, because it's been a long time, and a lot of the stuff over there has lasted for years. Like the HVAC and some of the other stuff, it's just now it's time to repair it. So, yes, ma'am.
This may be a January question, and it might vary depending what campus is closed, but what are we looking at doing then, consolidate? Once campuses consolidate, what are we looking at doing with that? Like, I know, like last year, there was talk of moving like, the different programs into Coronado, or different things, like, will there be shuffling then within?
Yes.
Or are we looking at selling, or like, after we consolidate, is there still the opportunity to use it, or are we looking to make money off it? What is our next
We
step?
will use, it would be my recommendation that we use this for different purposes. So much so that
They're not selling.
we're not selling. But so much so that we've actually stopped, not stopped, but slowed down on some of the infrastructure improvements on areas outside of campuses, like this.
And then what would happen, so sticking with this example, then what would happen to this?
Move
Like,
to one of the campuses.
sorry, to the actual facility, so all the
This
people have
facility?
moved to whatever campus, what happens to this?
We start marketing it to pop it up.
So then there will, like, okay, 2 steps down, there is
More,
a one.
capitalize.
So that would be an option then, instead of, like you said, instead of closing the schools, like we can come up with other options.
You can come up with other options, but that's not what she said is if we do consolidate, this is what I heard. If we do consolidate the campus, and we have the 5 middle schools, of the middle school that we consolidate, we will be able to use for the new JTAC. We can set up central office in, we can build a boardroom, we can put ERC in, we can make a new child nutrition.
So we will keep the schools, but then daycare facilities.
That's what I said. So you can put all of those in there and then use those buildings that they're in currently and sell those and then increase the amount of funds that we can use to pay down. Keeping in mind that that's not a recurring.
Sure, it's a one-off,
It's a one-off.
but it still helps, and you know how long it takes.
What are we doing with Coronado? Just to clarify, so there wouldn't be a utility savings, because if the buildings are still being utilized.
Correct.
Got a question?
I just have a question with the 2 middle schools right now feeding into the high school, in Winter High School. What would be the plan there?
It depends on which campus we consolidate, and then now how we have to redraw the lines to make sure that we maintain that flow of students into that high school. Because you bring up a good point. Now, you've got 2 middle schools that feed into every high school. But if we consolidate, now we're gonna have to break up one of the middle schools to where it goes to different high schools.
I do have a question about the pricing. Do you guys get different quotes from like different companies, or is it just, you guys have something?
We have someone who puts it out, we go with, we have lawyers. We try and get the best price. Now, the other thing that I heard was this: would we sell a campus? That would not be my recommendation. In today's environment, there's only gonna be one big buyer who will come in and pay twice what the school's worth. It's a charge. You don't want that in the middle of your district, because then all we're gonna do is pull from the camps that you have. So that would not be my recommendation.
So you get more money out of a facility like this than you would an elementary in the middle of the, neighborhood.
So, we almost.
Utility cost per student, I think, middle school utility cost per student is, 300, scroll it. Is it on there? I think it was 360. I think it was 360, 363, for middle school average, utility cost per student. So you can see efficient, highly efficient, inefficient.
What is the middle school average? The elementary was whatever, 235?
235, like
Is that
360,
the-
like 363.
So I have a question about this, so I'm just confused as to why we would consider this if the building would still be occupied.
It's not only that, it's also an issue of enrollment as well, or could be an issue of enrollment as well, because if you're considered to have a lower enrollment, but you're spending a certain amount for utilities, then your cost per student for utilities reveals an underutilization of that facility. Or could.
I'd also say this: if you're on a campus, and you can ask any of the principals in the room, when you're talking about utilities on a campus and it's being occupied by students, especially at the secondary level, you're talking about till 10, 11 o'clock at night. At high school, you're talking about till 2 o'clock in the morning, because those kids will go on a long trip to Laredo to play a football game, come back, and we're still running utilities all day. When you're saying that it's going to serve as more of an office area, you're talking about Monday through Friday office hours. So the utilities that you spend to operate an office building are different from the utilities that you spend when you have a group of students on. If that makes sense.
No, it does make sense, but I know like at the elementary, they would be operating on an 8 to 5 anyway.
Not necessarily. You find that elementaries do a bunch of stuff after school. A bunch of programs, a bunch of stuff to bring in. I'm just like.
Copperfield had literacy. I literally left Copperfield's literacy night to come here, so like they are still cleaning up. I tried to get one of their members to come, but they are still cleaning up, so I can see that.
Yep. Roll up. That's it. All right.
All right, so can we show all of these? Do we have them all with the names? Or? Oh, you want them to put the dot
thing.
Okay.
Can you tell, just for clarity, can you show me which number is Kitty Hawk / Jason?
We're trying not to show the campuses because we want you to vote, not based on knowing which one's which, but just on the objective data on these are the numbers. And then right after you guys put your dots on, and do we have those up for them to put their dots?
Can I get a copy of the sheets to reconsider things? Because I've already forgotten some of my ones.
We still
No.
We're doing docs right now, I think. I like need a copy.
Is that the one that's out?
Are you doing stuff? I'll take pictures. It's not taking one. I think I should bring it anyway. No, like I have to rotate it.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh, on the back?
Make sure.
Yeah, go in there. Let it go in.
But let them.
Oh, question.
Yes, a follow-up to what I asked about, like, if we consolidate campuses, the use of them once the students are moved. So then, if we're moving new facilities or people in, are we still committing then to do all of this work? Right? Because if
Yes.
nutrition is moving into the school, we're still gonna have to do this red work. So then that's not really a cost. Right? Because
Correct, yeah, if we're keeping the building.
One, so the savings.
So we're not projecting savings being priority. I don't know where they're gonna still need to be done.
Even if we vote yeah, number one.
Right. Right, so the amount of money we talked about that we would realize that we did overhead, like $4,000, programs, whatever it is. But that stuff still needs to be done.
So like my priority has different priorities.
Yes, I think
So my concern
Right. So I feel yes, yeah, because I don't have it here. I just oh no, I mean, I was like, I wanted to because they did it like that's how we
Hey guys, real quick, as you are considering the dots that you have, don't go on your working sheets. They go on these big posters that are over here. Middle school's over here, elementary is over here. So your top 5 that you think we need to be considering based on what we did today, you put your dots on the posters on the side. Right. Working document in your hand, final votes on the poster. Green dots, elementary, yellow dots, middle school. Green dots, elementary, yellow, middle. On the back of your dots.
We are higher. Students more that are not captured here, so that's going to affect per student.
So what else is
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Oh, you know what? Wait, Greg. Hold on.
We got 5. We got 5. Olympia 5.
We're gonna be, yes.
Okay.
I
put my dots.
We're nearing the end.
Yes, we are.
Yes, you got it.
Yeah, no, there's multiple times. I think there is one on there first, and I have a couple of them.
Hey guys, may I have your attention as we prepare to wrap up? It's 8:05, I want to be respectful of your time. But my apologies as I start this because I did not give this information, but I thought we, anyway. I'm hearing that some put multiple dots on one school. That was not the intent. The intent was for the dots that you had to choose the top 5 schools based on the data that you were looking at. So if you put 3, 4, 5 dots all on one school, that's not what we were asking you to do. So I don't know how we come back and correct that.
Pull them down and do it again. Send out an email to send out an email. All right. So hey, if I can have everybody's attention, because I really want to get you guys going. This is what we're going to do. For all of the people who are members, we are going to resend this to you tomorrow. And then we're going to ask you to let us know what your selections are. And then when you send that back, we're going to now disaggregate the data based on what you send back. We were going to go with the dots on the paper, but apparently people double their dots and,
You have
I would
email, right? Like you guys
we have all of your emails.
But you can send out where you can select it
We
So
can
that
put it
if
in a
we
Google
make a
form,
table
and
for-
then
yeah,
that way you'll be
I
able
would
to
be,
select.
not that I don't trust y'all, but I just wanted to be fair, I think
We
that
will
would.
put it in a Google form, so when you click on it, it'll automatically
Right.
populate and we'll know which is. Make sense? And we'll say. Right, no, we're gonna probably send it out with names.
Within the next couple of days?
Yeah.
Sorry, my email jumped up. I had to like search for stuff to find it.
Ma'am, say again? We can include it with the number, that way you know, yes, we will. The number that's next to the school will be the number that we're on. Well, I see people still in on, hey, real quick, if I can get everybody's attention. I know this is hard work. I know it's tedious work. I know it could be kind of nerve-wracking. I just appreciate you guys coming out and working with us. So thank you guys so much. We'll see you again on the 12th. Thank you guys. Thank you.